Okay, in this tutorial, we're going to look at drawing a latch case for a door. It's not the actual lock, but it's the catch that keeps the door firmly closed. In front of you there, you shall see the CAD drawing that you're going to be going through. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like in reality, you should see kind of a view there that's got the striker plate. The striker plate's the one that's connected to the door frame, and there's a tubular latch that we're going to be drawing. This end plate is the bit that we'll probably be drawing first of all. Okay, so I'll be referring this to this from time to time. To the side of me, I've got another screen here, so if you see me just glancing off to the right, you'll know what I'm doing here. Okay, so this is described as a 76mm back set, the distance between here and the end plate. Okay, and here's another view of the end plate looking from the side. So as I said, there's going to be a separate striker plate that we need to draw. But overall, the dimensions we're talking about are 96mm by roughly 58mm. That's the kind of zone that you're going to be drawing in. So we'll start a new drawing, and this will take you through to a template. So it's going to be new drawing, and then we'll go to CAD ISO and then open that. So we're starting on a completely new environment here. And the first thing we'll do, just to get an idea of what sort of scale we're drawing to here, we'll just draw a line of around about 1 meter. And that kind of gives me an idea of roughly what size the line should be, what size the geometry should be in this drawing. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that now because I know really whereabouts I'm drawing and how big that's going to be. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the end plate, and then we'll draw some construction lines. So first thing we need to do actually before that is we're going to set up some layers, and it's going to be in this part of your ribbon here, layer properties. So click on layer properties, and this is when we give a layer to each part of the model. It could be a text layer, dimensions layer, and so on. So we'll click this little icon here, and we're going to type in text. Okay, and we're going to go across to the color, and let's just make this yellow. It doesn't really matter too much what color it is, as long as we get some difference in visibility. Click again on the new layer, which is this one, and let's type in DIMS for dims, and then let's make that a gray color. And now we'll go again to new layer, and we'll type in construction line, or CONSTLINE for short. And let's make that a kind of a lighter gray, in this case, color 253. Another layer, and let's call this, say, metal. And let's make this one, say, magenta. And we'll do one more, and let's call this center. Right, it can be RE, Americans spell ER. Let's make that, just make that white. Okay, so we've got enough layers there. We might come back to that later to add more, but that gives us enough for the time being. And then once you've done that, go up to this part of your layer control ribbon, or part of the ribbons, and let's click construction line. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is draw the end plate, and that's going to be a vertical line down the way. Now make sure that the ortho is on, ortho mode is on, and let's draw a line down the way, making that 58. Just zoom in again, and once you've got your 58, you got to just get right in there, just to the bottom of that line, and then come across by 1.7mm. Back up again, and let's just move across to the starting point, and you'll see that there's a little kind of inference line. This is a dotted line, it creates a cross, and then once you click on near the cross, then you'll just drag it over to the start, and then enter to close that, and that's our end plate. Okay, now we're still on the construction line here, so I don't want to draw too much on the construction line, but we will eventually make that onto our metal layer. Okay, in fact, let's just do that now. Let's select that and then go up to our metal layer, and it should turn magenta. Now we're still on our construction line layer, right? We'll eventually turn these construction lines off because they're really just a way of setting up a grid. And now with your object snaps on, which is this part here, should be highlighted. Now you can go ahead and draw a construction line out from the center of that end plate. I'm going to do that again because I want to make that exactly 96. Oops, do it again. 96 millimeters. Type in 96, enter that, and now you should get something like this. Okay, so we know that the tube itself is 22 millimeters deep. In that case, we're going to offset this line by 2/2 of that, 11. So we're going to go up to our offset command and offset that through 11. So click once, move up, and click again to land it. And we'll click on the center line again, and then move down with your mouse, and then click again to land that. Okay. Now I'm going to keep this construction line because we're going to be doing a lot of geometry based on this kind of center line. So I'm going to drag it across to about here, right? And I'm also going to draw a line from the top of that end plate all the way along, roughly in the same sort of location, because all of the other views are going to strike off from that. Okay, so if you like, for example, that could be the end view of the tubular latch, I should say, and then this here area will make that for our striker plate. So we'll come to that a little bit later, but let's now put these two lines onto our metal layer, okay, to match the end plate. And what we'll do actually is we'll just keep doing that. We'll just actually get onto the metal layer just so that we can start to get the rest of the tubular latch drafted. So it's a line from here down to here, and again, you've got to make sure that you're on the metal layer to do that. Keeping the construction line where it is, and now we're going to go up to the chamfer command, which is tucked in behind the fillet command. Now you'll see it's changed slightly, this little symbol, and that means we can go ahead now and chamfer these two lines. Now the way to do that is to go to distance, and we're going to specify the first chamfer distance to be 5, enter, and it'll ask you for the second chamfer distance, which will also be 5, so you're just going to hit enter again. And now that means you can pick one line, pick another line, okay, and you can see how that's chamfered. Now, you can hit enter to bring back the previous command, or you can just go up to the chamfer command again. Now it recognizes the previous settings, it recognizes the previous value of 5, so I'm just going to keep clicking on that. And that's the end of your tubular latch. So you can now start to see some sort of geometry that resembles what we're looking for. I'm going to look up to the screen that I've got next to me here, and I'm just going to make sure that I've got a couple of other things to do. Now, in this case, we're going to go back onto our construction line layer, and I'm going to draw a mini line, let's call it that, just between here and here. Now we're going to delete that. So if I hover over that, you can see it's on our construction line layer. Now the reason I've done that is because I want to offset that so that I can actually get a point here to start drawing a circle to thread the lever through. Okay. Go to our offset command, and I want you to type in a value of 76, which is the center point of that lever is threaded through, we'll click onto this mini line and offset it to the left. So now that means we've got an intersection point here where we can start to create a circle and where that lever is going to thread through into the latch. So now let's go up to the circle command here, and you should snap onto the middle, that midpoint. And when it asks you for the radius of the circle, let's go for a radius of 6 millimeters. Okay, so overall that diameter is 12 millimeters. Let's put that onto our metal layer. In fact, let's go back onto our metal layer and stay there for a little longer. And now we're going to draw a polygon. Now a polygon is just sitting next to this rectangle. So if you click that little triangle next to the rectangle, you'll see that you can draw a polygon. And you're going to accept the number of sides to be 4. Enter for that to move on to the next stage. Specify the center of the polygon, which is the center of the circle. Okay. And it says inscribed in circle, so you're going to click on that and specify the radius of the circle, and then click into the command line and just type 6. Okay, so that's the square inscribed within that circle. Okay, now in reality it's not exactly like that because these two lines don't necessarily touch each other, but for the sake of what we're drawing just now, we're happy enough with that. This is just to get you used to the software. Now I can delete this little mini line that I had before. And now I'm going to draw a little circle here because there is a little kind of screw that will go in here of some sort. So, in fact, what I'll actually do is I'll go back onto the construction line here, and I'll just do that same line that I should have kept in because I want to offset that by 25 millimeters. Let's do that again. So offset 25 millimeters. And click to there, and let's just draw a circle of maybe, let's say 2.5 millimeters. That's enough for maybe a screw to get through there. Let's just delete that now, and like I said, we're going to keep this big long line where it is. Now we can move on to the next part of our model. So let's just do the end view of the plate here. So I'm going to make sure that in this case now, I'm going to stay on the metal layer for a little longer. So in this case, it's going to be 25 wide. So we're going to draw a line from here, roughly. This dimension here doesn't matter too much, as long as there's a bit of a gap. And make that 25 and go down to the bottom of that, which is 58, as we know now. And then move back across 25. And then back up to the start. So now we've got this rectangle here, which represents the end view of the tubular latch. Okay, now we're going to draw a couple of circles here, just to, again, this is where your screw is going to go into the end of the end plate. And I'm just going to make that roughly 2.5 millimeters. Now, I'm not too bothered really for the sake of this tutorial where that goes, as long as we're talking roughly there. So you'll see when I hovered over the midpoint of that line there, it kind of inferences again. It just picks up that midpoint, so just drag down slightly and then make a circle of about 2.5 millimeters. We're going to use this long line that we did at the start as an axis, and we're going to mirror that circle. So it's a select, always enter to move on to the next stage after select. And now it's asking for the first point of the mirror line. So let's click a couple of points on this mirror line. I'm happy to move from there to there. And you'll see now that it's already starting to create a circle below that. Click again. It says erase source objects. You're going to say no to that because we want to keep the upper circle. So that's 2 screw holes that we've created. Okay, the next point that we're going to do now is we're going to draw the end of this this latch here. Okay, this is the bit that's kind of spring loaded that allows you to close the door. And let's make this roughly 11, probably 12 millimeters. Let's make it 12 millimeters. And let's make this depth here around about 18 millimeters. So I'm going to, again, I'm just going to create another line over the top of this and bring it out to here by, say, 12 millimeters. I'm going to just cut that off there so that you can now actually see a little line that we're going to offset by 6 on, or I beg your pardon, we're going to offset it by 9 on one side and 9 below that. So let's go back to our offset command. Let's click 9 here, or specify 9 for the value. Click the line, click up, click on the line again, click down. And now we're going to come out of that, just hit escape's fine, draw a line from here, from the top end to the bottom end. So this is about the springs in and out of the keeper, and now we're going to give this a little chamfer again. So back up to our chamfer command, and in this case, let's make the chamfer distance 3, not 5 as we did before. So go to distance, type in chamfer distance of 3. The second chamfer distance will also be 3, so hit enter again, and then click once, click twice. Okay, so that's the first chamfer. Now, as I said, you could hit enter again, so I'm going to do that to bring back the previous command. So if you hit enter, you're back into the chamfer command again, and it recognizes the previous settings. So click once, click twice onto the other line, and that's a little chamfer now to represent the spring-loaded catch. Okay. Now we need to show that as an end view, right? Because this plate here is really an end view looking straight on to the end of this catch. So with that in mind, we need to go back onto our construction line, just draw a line from here. We need to make sure these all line up, and a line from here doesn't really matter as long as you get them lining up with the top of this catch here. Now I'm going to form a rectangle here, which is approximately 8 millimeters wide. So again, I'm going to draw a little line from the midpoint here down to here, and let's offset this now by 4 on one side. So I'm going to offset this line to one side, and I'm going to offset it to the other side to make up that 8. So 2 4s. So click once there, that's the 4. Click to the other side, that's also 4. And now we're going to trim these up to tidy it up to make it one rectangle. So let's go to the scissors command. Enter straight after you click on the scissors, and then just take away the, work from the top down, just click away, removing that line like so. Then go from the bottom up on this line, and we'll get to here. And then let's take out this one, and let's take out this one. You'll see a little X, a little red X, highlighting where you can trim away. Okay, and let's just trim this one while we're at it. If you kind of work from the outside in, it works better for you. And then let's just delete what we've got here. Okay, now I accidentally deleted that long line, so let's just drag it out again. Okay, now I want to go on to my metal layer and just draw around that or trace around that. So I'm just going to use a rectangle command. You could actually use the line command just to trace over that. Okay, so we're happy enough with that. We know now that that distance here is 25 by 58, so we don't really have too much else to do to that. Now, at this stage, what I want to do is get some dimensions on this. So I'm going to kind of pause for a bit, and I'm going to come back and put some dimensions on the model as we have it just now. So before I move on to getting the dimensions on, I'm happy enough to just take this out completely, just erase that, and I'm just happy to erase that as well. And I want to keep this long line running through as an axis for any other mirror commands that we do. So the next point or the next thing that we need to do is to create some text. Now you go to the Annotate tab on your ribbon here, okay? And what we want to do is we want to set up text first, then dimensions, and then leaders, okay? And this is specific to our particular project. So let's go into this little kind of diagonal arrow here, which is a launcher. It's a text style launcher. Click on this little arrow here, and up comes our text style dialog box. First thing you need to do is click New, and I want my text here to be approximately 3 millimeters. Okay, so it's going to be TAXT 3, and then OK that. Now you make the height 3 there, so that the text 3 has to match the height 3. Apply that and close. Okay, the next thing we do is we come along to our dimension style manager, and we're going to use that text style that we've just created, and we're going to slot it into our dimension style manager. So click on New, type DIM3, continue, and then you come into another dialog box for your dimension style manager, and we're going to go across to text, go across to text style, and click on text 3. And now we're going to go down to, well, we're happy with that. We're going to go to our symbols and arrows, and let's make the arrow size 3. 2.5 is fine because it's not too different. And then let's go across to primary units, and let's make the precision 0.0. So the value could be, say, 6.5 or 13.2. And then what we need to do is change this comma to a decimal point, which is a period, as they say in America. So make that a period, and let's hit OK. We're going to come back to this in a second and close that. Okay, next thing we're going to do is leaders. So click on this little diagonal symbol here again. Click on New, and we're going to call this Leader 3. Click on Continue. Go to Content here at the top. Go to Text Style, and then again lift the text 3, because we're going to use that in every part of this main dimension style, leader style. So we want to keep it to 3, and then go across to the leader format, and then make this arrowhead 3 again, so that everything's consistent throughout. Click on Close. So now we've created the text style, the dimension style, and the leader style. Now we're going to apply these to our model. Now I'm just going to give you an idea of what this looks like. I might raise this to 5, a height of 5 just now, but at the moment I'm just going to show you how this works. Let's call this side elevation. Enter, and then enter again. Now, this is a size that you really need for your dimensions and for maybe some notes, but for a title, you probably need this a bit bigger. But for now, we're going to continue on with that, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that I'm in the dimension layer. You've got to go to the Home tab first and then Dimensions, or DIMS. So make sure you're on this DIMS layer, and then we're going to apply some dimensions to that model. So go back to Annotate, go to this little icon here which says Linear, and we're going to click from here, the end of the tubular latch, to this first line here, this endpoint line. So that's 96. Okay, go back to the same linear dimension function, and this time we're going to give it the value of the back set. So it's from here, middle of that square, to again the same vertical line that we used before. Okay. Now you'll notice that the lines, these extension lines, are touching the model, and we really don't want that to happen. So we're going to separate those away from it to create a bit of a gap. So let's go back into our dimension style launcher again. And this time, instead of going to new, we're going to go to modify. So we're just going to do a couple of little bits of fine tuning here. Go to lines, go down here to fixed length extension lines, tick that, and then make a length of say 20, and that will give it a gap that you need. Then close that, and you'll see now that there's a bit of a gap between your dimension lines and your model. Okay, now this looks a wee bit untidy here, but we're just going to keep it there for now. These are our construction lines, which we'll eventually make invisible. And the next thing we're now going to do is just put on a couple more dimensions, again, as we've done there. So let's give it the dimension here, which is 22. You've got to click, click, and then land it with a click. Okay, so the final one is going to be this, well, the final one for now on this particular part is going to be from here down to the bottom of that square and then drag it out. Okay. Okay, so we've got a few dimensions on that. We might come back to that shortly. In fact, I can see one already. This is the thickness of this end plate. So let's just get that on while we're here. Let's click from here to here, and that's our 1.7 millimeters thickness for our end plate. And now let's move on to the end view. Let's click the dimension again up here. I'll click from here to here. We know that that's 25. Now, if that's getting a bit too close, you can actually manually drag these up slightly to give it a better idea of what's going on there. And one more. We'll click from the top corner down to the bottom corner, drag it out, and that's 58. So we've got one more model to do here, and that's going to be our striker plate. So again, back to the Home tab, go on to Metal, and this time we're going to create the striker plate. So it's going to be an offset distance of 19. So staying on your metal layer, go to Line. We're going to click on this construction line here and drag it across. And while you're dragging it across, type in 19. Drag it down. Click onto the bottom line perpendicular. Again, this is why ortho mode and object snaps are very important. Drag it left, 19 again, and then back up to the start point. And then escape or close will just close that off for you. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to offset this right-hand line here because there is actually like a T-shaped bit of geometry going on here. So I'm going to offset this line here by 13. Enter to move on to the next stage. Click the line you want to offset. Click again to land it. And now we're going to, this is really a temporary line that we're dealing with here. Okay. And now I'm going to make this dimension here slightly more than what we've got here. So I'm going to say that this is going to be roughly 22 millimeters again. Okay, so that means we've got to offset this line by 11 again. And then this line here also by 11. Okay, now we've got to really try and tidy this up again so you can actually get the grips and bring them in slightly. And get this line here, just click on it and then get the grip, the blue square, and just drag it across to there. Okay, so now we can start to work around this. It's like a T shape on its side, really. So I'm going to just tidy that up by tracing over this particular construction line. And now I'm going to delete the construction line. And I'm going to try and just tidy up the ends of this particular bit of geometry so that we're left with like a T shape on its side. We need to get rid of this kind of middle line here. So I'm going to go up to the trim command. Once you click on trim, enter, and then just trim away with a green box or actually pick onto the line itself. Okay, and that's really the kind of the shape that you're looking for. I'm going to fillet these corners here because there is a slight little bit of a curvature on that. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go back to the fillet command. I'm going to go to radius, and we're going to give this a radius of just 1 millimeter. Okay, so now you can click on the top line, click on the side line, and you'll see it gives a little bit of a curvature on that. Again, enter brings back the previous command. And we'll do the same for the bottom. Click on that, click on the bottom line. Again, you can either hit enter, go back to the fillet command. Click on this vertical line, click on the bottom line. And now let's finally get a chamfer in here. Chamfer command again is tucked in behind the fillet command. So again, distance, in this case, let's go for a distance of say, let's say 2 millimeters. Second chamfer distance, also 2. Click on the vertical line, click on the horizontal line, hit enter to bring back the previous command, hit on the vertical line, hit on the horizontal line. Okay, one more to do, we're going to chamfer here. So again, enter to bring back the previous command. You'll see it comes up on the command line. Click on the vertical line, click on the horizontal line. We'll tidy this up in a second. Enter, click on the vertical line, click on the horizontal line. Okay, now we can trim that, or we can just simply get the grip and just bring it back like that. Get the grip, bring it back to a nice neat finish. Okay, so finally we need to get a screw hole in here. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this circle right the way across and just eyeball it in the middle here. I'm not too bothered really, as long as it sort of sits pretty central that way. So I'm going to go copy, I'm going to select that. Once you've selected something, enter to move on to the next stage. Now you can get this, the midpoint of that because the snaps allow you to do that. And I'm going to kind of eyeball it here, but it might even just allow me to center it like that. Enter to close that off. And I'm going to do the same on this side. Well, I could actually mirror this one. Let's go for a mirror command. So it's the mirror, select that, the blue box. Once you've done that, select to move on to the next stage. And let's create or use this axis. And like that, there we go. And now we're starting to get towards the end of this. So I'm just checking to see if there's anything else we need to do. There's probably a radius dimension on here. I'm going to come back to that in a second. I'm just going to get this final bit of geometry in here for the keeper. So let's make that roughly the same distance between here and here. We'll kind of mimic that across here. So I'm going to just use, we're still on the metal layer. Click on line, just hover over the endpoint in that. Don't actually click on it. Hover over it and then just drag your mouse in a little bit. And I'm generally speaking, I think I'm probably going to go for about 12 millimeters for that. So 12, and then down by 22 again, across by 12, and then back up again. Okay, now I think that this has got a little bit of curvature on it, just like the top part of the striker plate. So again, I'm going to go back into fillet. I'm going to go to radius. I'm going to keep it at 1. I'm going to go fillet, vertical line, horizontal line. Enter to bring back the previous command. Click on the vertical line, click on the horizontal line. Again, another enter to bring back the previous command. Vertical line, horizontal line, and one more like that. Okay, I've really kind of eyeballed this particular bit of geometry here, but if you wanted to, you could probably create a distance between here and here of about, I would say, nothing more than 5 millimeters. So let's get a couple more dimensions on this. and we'll go to annotate. First of all, we need to make sure that we're on the correct layer. You can actually go onto the correct layer using these drop-down tabs here. So we're on dimensions there, and then we're going to do a linear dimension again from this point to this point, drag it up and land it roughly in line with the other dimensions at the top there. Again, hit enter to bring back the previous command, click on the top line, click on the bottom line, drag it out, and again, that's no surprise that that's 58 because we've used our construction lines. And I'm going to go and I'm going to put some dimensions on here. We're going to use this little arrow next to dimension here. Remember, we're on our annotate tab here. So click this little arrow here, go down to radius, click on you've got to click right over the circle, and now you can bring that out as a radius of 6. Okay, now what you could do is you could start to dimension the rest of it here. So let's stick on a few more. Let's get the dimension from here to here, which is 12. Enter to bring back the previous command. I'm going to get this one here, which is 18. Okay, and we know this is 18 between here and here as well. Right, so now that we've got that, I think now we can start to look at hiding our construction lines. I've just noticed another thing that we could probably do here, but we'll take away the construction line first of all. Don't delete it completely because you might want to go back and make some changes. Go back to your Home tab, click on the downward arrow, go to construction line, and there's a little bulb here, says turn layer on or off. Let's turn that off, and you'll see that the construction lines have disappeared. Okay, these are dimension lines, by the way, so you could manually drag that up just to get away from the main model. You don't want to confuse the two. And I just want to check this one here again, which is a case of getting this grip, probably just drag it up to a bit there. And again here as well. Just a little bit more, folks. Okay, so as long as you can clearly see where the model is and where your dimension lines are, then you're in a good place. We don't want this line here, so we're just going to delete that one. And I think maybe we could just drag this out a little bit more away from our model. And I'm going to just try and fix up the text here by making another text size or another text style. Probably bring it up to about 6. So I'm just going to do that quickly by going on to the Annotate tab and creating another new text style. We're not going to delete the previous one because that's for our notes. Let's just go to New. Let's just call this one Text 6. Okay, that. Make sure the height matches up with the text here and the height here. They both try and get them to match up. And now we can go on to our text layer and start to draw some text in. I like to use single line, so I'm just going to go above this. We'll delete the note below it in a second. Click once, click to the right to give us a good strong direction, and then start to type in side elevation view. Enter, and then enter again just to close that off. Okay, what I tend to do is I tend to copy the text over again, but just for the sake of this tutorial, and then what I do is I just double click on it, and then that allows me to edit it. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to get a little kind of an inference point here and just drag it along here, roughly eyeball it, and then that allows me to put in the next bit of title here, which is end elevation view. Oops. Enter, enter again. Oops, that didn't work very well. Just going to click away from it. Sometimes just to click away from it will do the job for you. Okay, so I want once more, single line. Again, I'm going to just try and get an inference point here. And then this is the elevation of striker plate. Striker plate. Enter once, enter again. Okay, just get rid of this little note because that was just a bit of an experiment to start off with. And now we've got something that we can now put into a page layout. So I'm just going to pause this and take a wee break and come back to that just in a little moment. Now we've got our model done. The next thing is we're going to put this onto an A4 sheet. And because the latch is actually small enough to put onto an A4 sheet, the text style that we've used here and here, those two text styles will actually be suitable for putting onto a page layout. Okay, it's not often the case. In fact, whenever you're drawing a large building, then you've got to make the text size considerably more to take account of the fact that you're not going to fit a large building onto a sheet of paper. But in this case, we've got a latch which will, because it's drawn to one, it will actually fit on an A4 sheet. So the text size doesn't have to change. So down at the bottom of your screen, you've got layout 1 and layout 2. Click on layout 1. And you'll see here that you've got something that resembles an A4 sheet. What you can do is you can down to paper or model space, you can click on that, and it brings a thick yellow line. It doesn't have to be yellow, but in this case it is. As long as it's a thick line, that indicates that you're in model mode. Okay, so if you roll your mouse wheel in and out, you can bring this model up to a scale that's suitable. You can come back out of that by either double clicking or clicking back on this on these tabs. Okay, and just to get in a wee bit, I'm going to make it back into model space by clicking again on that tab. And let's just get rid of this grid line by clicking on the drawing grid. Now we want to set the scale of this, and the scale I'm going to give this is 1 to 2. Okay, so it's going to be half the size of full size. Okay, so let's click on this little arrow down here. You must be in model space. You must be in model mode here to view this viewport scale. So click on the little arrow and then go up to 1 to 2. So that means half the size of full size. Okay, so now let's just center it. You can press down on the middle mouse wheel. Okay, let's go back to paper space just so that we can grab hold of this viewport and then drag these grips up. Okay, now we're going to draw a very, very basic title panel at the bottom of our A4 sheet. So to do this, you need to be in paper space. I'm just going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to drag it out roughly from here down to, What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to just change the layer a bit so that you can get a bit more visibility. So let's just do that again. Click on the rectangle, click roughly here, and make sure it's within that dotted line. We don't want that to go outside the dotted line because then you'll not see it when it gets printed out. We'll take care of this yellow line shortly, but I just want to rule out some lines just so that we can get something to put our text into. Enter to close that one off, go back to line again, and we're talking roughly something that looks like this. Now again, I'm just eyeballing this and just splitting it up into something that will give me a title panel. Now if you're not happy with that, you can just move these across slightly with your grips, clicking on them. Okay, and in fact, let's bring this over a little bit more so that we can start to type in the main title here. So now we've done that, let's stay in paper space. You must have this shown here. and then go to annotate, and let's make this, first of all, let's make sure that we're in our text mode here. Okay, go to annotate, single line, and let's put in the title of this, which is, so let's put in title. This is the title of the project. Let's just call it latch, or tubular latch. Enter, and then enter again. Next thing we're going to do is put a scale on this. So let's go to the same one, single line, and let's put in roughly here, SCALE colon 1 colon 2. That means it's half the size. Enter and enter. In this case, you could put in something like who it was drawn by. So we'll just sort of come down here slightly, just again lining it through, click there, give it a good strong direction across the way, and say DRWN, drawn by, colon, in this case it'll be myself. Enter, enter, and let's give it a date as well. So single line, let's just eyeball this through here. Drag it across, so you see this dotted line, and then type in date, and in this case 24th August 2020. Now, I'm not going to put much more into that. In fact, I'm even going to leave this blank here. We could put in something like amendments or revisions if you ever need to do something like that. This is just to give you an idea of how we would set up a title panel. Okay. Now, I'm just going to create one more. I want to hide this viewport here because I don't want this box showing when it goes to get printed out. Some people do, but I like to hide my viewports. So I'm going to go back into the Home tab. In fact, I'm going to go to Layer Properties, and I'm going to create another layer called Viewport. And let's just make that white. It's going to disappear anyway, so it really doesn't matter too much whether it's white or yellow. Let's just close that. Now that's a viewport, we need to put this onto the viewport layer. So click on it and then drop down with this little arrow here, clicking it onto your viewport. You'll see that's turned into black. Well, black and white are interchangeable in AutoCAD, so a bit confusing, but never mind. Let's click on that viewport and click on the light bulbs. This means that the viewport is actually going to be made invisible. So click on that and you'll see that that turns off. Okay, so we've got something now which we can probably present to a joiner, or we could present it to maybe an ironmongery retailer, just so that we can kind of give them an idea of what's going on here. Let's go ahead and print that onto a PDF. We could print it to a printer if we had a printer connected up, but we might not want to show it as colored because yellow may not be visible. So go across to print, go across to plot, and then we're going to select printer plotter. Let's go down to DWG to PDF. And now go up to the plot style table up here, and we're going to click on that and make sure that we've got that as monochrome. Down to preview so that you can get an idea of what it's going to look like. Okay, and that's not too bad. We've got an idea there. The text is big enough, it's clear enough, the contrast is good. So we're going to just hit escape. And now you can just hit OK and then save it maybe to a point on your system here. I'm going to just save it to here and call it tubular latch, save it in my pen drive. And once you do that, it's then going to come up as a PDF, which of course is an Adobe type of format, as we all know. Now, you've just got to kind of zoom in to get a little bit of a better idea of what's going on here. But you can see that the line weights are pretty good. These are the default line weights, and your title panel is clear as well. Okay, so that's the end of that tutorial. We're going to move on to the next one a little later, which is going to be a door jamb detail with the door handle and so on. But that gives you an idea of how you would use some basic commands in AutoCAD. Thank you.